Hello and welcome to today's podcast. I'm Susan Guthrie, your host, and today we have Dr. Vassia back with us. I'm so happy to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's always fun to talk to you, and I feel that when we start talking, it's very difficult to stop. Right? We can talk for hours.
It's been that way, but all the times that we have spoken. For those of you who are listening, you may remember Dr. Vassia was with me just a little while ago, and we were talking about loneliness and divorce, and the difference with being alone and being lonely, and her antidote. She has two of them to loneliness. So if you haven't listened to that episode yet, please go back and listen, because I know that, that is one of the number one things I hear from you all is that feeling of loneliness. So there's some great golden nuggets in that episode. But as I told you, when she came to do that, when she originally was introduced to me, she had two topics. She's got several topics I think she's an expert on, but there were two that were on the list where I just couldn't make up my mind which one was better. So we decided to do both. So today we're going to talk about perfectionism and divorce, because this is another area. And I'm not going to say that I have a little bit of an issue with perfectionism, but but I do hear this also as it relates to divorce. I think perfectionism is an issue, especially that women struggle with. I feel it is a little bit gender. I'm sure men have it as well, but it really comes out around the divorce process. So today that's what we're going to dive into. And again, thank you so much for coming back and doing this episode with me. There were so many great things that we got out of the last episode. I know this is going to be another really helpful episode for my listeners.
I think it's going to be perfect.
So let's just dive in. I got it.
You got it?
It is going to be perfect.
Pun intended.
So in that perfect way, I think the perfect place to start out would be with the fact that so many people feel that, and I've heard this phrase so many times, I can't believe I'm getting a divorce. We were the perfect family. We had the perfect marriage. We have the perfect family, the perfect life. Everyone wanted to be us. And now we're getting divorced.
Yeah, exactly.
Why do we hear that so much?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we're social beings, and we cannot survive with other people. We value their opinion to such a degree that we feel that if we don't have their approval, we're going to be left alone. We're not going to be accepted. We're going to be outside of the tribe. So we want to be, let's say, working or living according to the standards or the norms of our society. So the first thing that we think is, oh my God, what will other people think? So when I talk about perfectionism to people, that's one of the misunderstandings about perfection is they think that perfection is somebody who's perfect, but actually it's the opposite. When somebody is not perfect, but they're striving for excellence and perfection. So then I reframe it and I say to them, and I talk with the different words, which is actually the features of perfectionism. And I ask them, do you feel guilty? Oh, yeah. Do you feel that you failed? Oh, absolutely. Do you compare yourself with the other people's standards? Oh, yeah, all the time. Well, this is perfectionism. So that they can understand that perfectionism is not what they think, but it's actually this constant comparison that I have ruined something, I have failed enormously, I am a mistake, not I made a mistake, I am a mistake, and that will haunt me forever. It's so heavy. Perfectionism is so heavy. It's not only the guilt that we're feeling, it's a shame. We have done something ashamed of ourselves because of what we did. We're so embarrassed. And as if what we are right now is not enough. And
right.
We have to try.
Well, and that's this, I think that probably feeds that fire of shame around divorce, because there is always that external perception, or people see it or believe that it's there. This external perception is if your marriage did not continue, that it was a failure. And, you know, I talk all the time about just because a relationship ends doesn't mean that relationship was a failure. It means that that relationship served you hopefully very well for the time that it did, and that it perhaps has now come to its natural end, which could be perfect in and of itself, that it served its purpose. But unfortunately, society still very much looks at the end of relationships as a fault-based thing, as something that someone had to have done something wrong. We need to have a victim. We need to have a villain. And so this perfectionism and this idea of the perfect family and the perfect life only feeds that and makes it even harder for people, because, you know, let's go back to no one's perfect. There is perfect is a myth, isn't it? That it doesn't exist.
No, absolutely doesn't exist. And actually the same mindset that makes us believe that there's such thing as perfection is the same mindset that makes us change the ending goal and move the expectations a little bit higher so that we never feel that we have reached perfection. So the same mindset that makes us believe that there's such thing is the same mindset that makes us believe that no, you will never achieve that. So it's like a hamster wheel. You're always running and it never ends. And another negative and very, I think, devastating thing about perfectionism is that it has nothing to do with real joy, real happiness, and authenticity in our lives. And I'm going to use the example that he said before, like about society, and we think that we have failed when we're taking a divorce, but actually the reality is that 2, 3, or 4 people are not happy in this family because the parents are fighting, because the kids are witnesses to these fights and the conflicts. Nobody's happy. But society doesn't think, well, do something that makes you happy. I will support you in that. If this is divorce, fine, it's okay. You're going to go through that. You're going to find people that will make you happy. And eventually you're going to be happy. Society doesn't say that. It says, well, actually stick together, even though you're not happy. I don't care about that. Just stay together and use the excuse, we're doing it for the children. While actually your children are very unhappy, traumatized, seeing you fighting and cheating each other and doing all these nasty thing to each other. And then you're using the excuse of society, you're doing it for the children.
Right. And I hear that, I just heard it yesterday from somebody who was speaking to me, who was saying, and this was a little bit different than the fighting. It was that back what we talked about in our last episode, what I call roommate syndrome. It was a couple who have basically just moved into a phase of their relationship where they coexist, but their children are there in that household with them, and they are planning on getting divorced when their kids are done with high school. And the one phrase I said to the person that I was speaking to was, what do you suppose the relationship modeling you're showing your children tells them about a healthy marriage or relationship? You've told me you and your spouse are living, you know, basically coexisting in this house without any real love and affection and connection. What do you think that's modeling for your kids?
Absolutely. That's amazing what you're saying, because it brings another perspective. I totally get it. I'm not here actually to, point fingers on people like, why do you stay together? You're harming your children, etc. There must be a valid reason why somebody stays and gives a second chance and tries to save the marriage. I totally understand. And we have millions of different cases out there of divorce. So one of the things that we need to consider, and we're just at this phase where we're considering whether staying in the relationship is more helpful or more harmful than being out of this relationship. So one of the things that we need to consider is exactly what he said. What do you teach your daughter? What do you teach your son by being in this relationship? Either this is an abusive relationship, or it's a highly conflicting relationship, or it's a relationship where you have both given up on hope, love, joy, and connection. What do you think you're teaching them? You are the first relationship that they are actually observing. You're going to be the example of relationships that they will have in their head, and they will be subconsciously looking for that. Let me create another relationship like this, because this is what my mom and my dad, or my mom and my mom, or my dad and my dad had. And I think this is how all relationships are. So let me try to find something similar. So subconsciously, they are just trying to repeat the same thing. They will be trying to repeat the same thing, or they will be so traumatized that they will try to avoid relationships altogether. Yes. Because of this experience that they had in this family.
So either way, what you're bringing to your children, what you're modeling for them, is not helpful to them at all. And that's what I always, say is what you're showing your children, what you would want for them, because people tend to go find what they recognize. And because it may not be what they intellectually think they want, but it's on an emotional level, it's what they recognize and what they feel comfortable with. Yes. And what is familiar, we tend to go for. But, and I was also thinking about what you were saying about one of the features of perfectionism being that the bar continues to get set higher. It reminds me of, I don't know if it was like a horse or a donkey, but they've got the stick with the carrot hanging, and they're always trying to get to that carrot, but every time they move forward, the carrot moves forward. We're kind of like that, whether it was a horse or a donkey, we're kind of like that horse or donkey. We're always chasing that carrot. What is it in us that makes us want to be perfect? Is it then, what happens if we can be perfect? Why are we chasing that all the
time? First of all, because I think we have been conditioned, we have been preached or lectured to believe that if you reach perfection, then you're going to be happy, harmonious, in peace, you're going to be successful, you're going to have everything in your life you want, you're going to have it because you're perfect, which is what is that?
That means you're never going to have it,
Yeah,
because
you're never
just
gonna
talked
have
about
it.
There's
Good
no
luck with
perfect.
that.
Yeah.
I still remember, like, from my childhood years, when I was a teenager, actually, at school, they used to bully us, bombard us with these messages that if you get something lower than an A, you're going to be a failure in life. So failure at school, failure in life. That was so terrifying for us. Like, oh my God, we have to continue studying 24/7 so that we don't end up like that. So this is the message that we got back from school. Like, you have to be successful in a very tangible way. You have to continuously try and try and try, because the moment that you rest and you take a break and you enjoy life, disaster happens. Without realizing, you're going to find yourself under the bridge. So it's all these scenarios that we hear. Now, under this level of what we hear from society, it's another thing that creates perfectionism. Usually it's related with trauma. I think we discussed it in one of our conversations. Trauma, which means that when I have gone through an experience in my life that made me feel unsafe, insecure, either about myself or about people or about the world around me, it is normal if I try to find a way that I can bring back control in my life. And what's best than being a perfectionist? Perfectionists are over controllers. They want to control everything. They want to know everything, what's going to happen, and how they can change the world, and everything about the future. So it can be perfectionism can be a trauma response, because I have felt exposed. Even people that they have been bullied, they become perfectionists. Because since you have doubted about myself, about my identity, my clothes, my nose, my hair, my intelligence, then I will try so hard to convince you that I will never, ever fail you, that I am so smart, so successful, so beautiful that you will never doubt about that. So you see the overcompensating effort that I'm doing because I'm driven by this deprivation, the deprivation of belonging, the deprivation of acceptance. So usually when we're looking for perfection, to come back to your question, we're not looking for perfection, but we're looking for acceptance. Maybe we think that back then, when in the future I'm going to be perfect, I will be happy or harmonious or in peace or successful. But actually, what we are really looking for is that if I'm all these things, happy, successful, etc., I will be accepted by others. I will be loved by others. I will be seen by others, which is something that I have never experienced fully in my life. So perfectionism is this overcompensating mechanism that we use in order to feel accepted.
It's sad. It's a very, I recognize it and I see it for people. And of course, it makes perfect sense that someone who is, should we say, struggling with perfectionism, or who has that tendency in their life, when they go through a divorce, of course it's going to trigger, even if they've got it, that the behaviors or that desire to be perfect, or their, I'll call it control freakism, under control, it can flare up and get way out of control during a breakup or a divorce. Because when do you feel less accepted?
When you're alone, when somebody has rejected you, when somebody has betrayed you.
Yeah. And that's, you mentioned this about the control, and I do want to touch on it as well, because I see this quite a bit, that one of the biggest, I guess I'll call it a symptom of perfectionism, is that control freak nature of having to be, if you can just be on top of every single solitary detail, including having a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C, just in case A doesn't work, then everything's going to work out all right. I'll tell you, attorneys have this tendency, right? Because we don't have the ability, or we're not, we have to go into a courtroom and do something for clients, and sometimes their very lives depend on what we're doing. But their happiness might depend on, their financial wherewithal might depend on it. So attorneys do tend to be a profession of perfectionists and control freaks, who will over prepare, overdo everything. And it's exhausting.
Yeah.
It's a very tired, so how do you know, or how do you start to break that cycle?
We're not talking about the professional side.
No,
of
let's
it.
just talk about perfectionism. Sorry.
Yeah. It's okay. But I get how somebody who's a perfectionist at work can be intrigued to bring it at home as well.
Right.
Because that becomes second nature at some point. So when you were talking about controlling and wanting to have a plan B and wanting to have everything under control and be prepared for all scenarios, besides being controlling, when we are perfectionists, we're also lonely, because a controlling person knows that I have to do all these things by myself. I don't trust anybody. So perfectionists don't trust others. So that's why I want to be so prepared about my life, because I don't trust that somebody will take care of me. I have to take care of me. That's why perfectionists don't ask for help. I cannot ask for help. First of all, because I will break this perfect facade that I have created, and people think that I have it together. But also, I don't want them to see my struggle, and I don't trust that they will take care of me. Remember, because they haven't accepted me in the past as a person with my vulnerabilities and my weaknesses. So why would I do something silly as showing my vulnerability and my struggle? So they don't ask for help. They want to control everything. They don't trust other people. So you see how lonely and sad can be being a perfectionist. So you asked, how do we break this, right?
Yeah.
That's a lot of work, for sure. Yeah. Starting with the point that we said that a person seeking for perfection is actually seeking for acceptance, we start with bringing some self-acceptance in our lives. So usually when I work with my clients and in the academy with the perfectionist course, the members of the academy that have taken the perfectionist course, we are actually working on moving from the toxic perfectionist to the healthy perfectionist. If you are a perfectionist, you will always be a perfectionist. You are a person that aims high. You are a person that is a high achiever. You have ambitions, you have dreams. There's something inside you that will always be looking for something more. I'm fine with that. But at the same time, let's make sure that you don't torture yourself, you don't beat yourself up. Let's make sure that you create some space to celebrate, to enjoy what you have achieved so far without moving the bar all the time higher and higher. Let's make sure that we make this perfectionistic attitude into a healthy one, because all the rest is toxic.
So that's, that's fascinating, because now I'm seeing it as, it's not that you're trying to eradicate the perfectionism. It's that you are you need to somewhat eliminate the toxic aspects of how you manifest your perfectionism, but you can get to a healthy place with your perfectionist. And some of those things that I was just hearing are being in the moment of your of what's happening for you, right? That you said celebrate those wins, as opposed to chasing that carrot that you're never going to get to. Yes. It's good to, you're right. It's good to be a high achiever. It's good to be someone who has dreams and hopes and aspirations. But when you achieve one of them, when you reach a goal, if you just then say, I need to set another goal because that one's done, you miss some of the point of the achievement, I guess.
Exactly. And they're also, that's why I said in the beginning, perfectionists, people believe that perfection is something positive, but this is not always the case, because you have some perfectionists that they can be procrastinators, sloppy, burning out, completely missing the opportunities around them. And it's not about delivering perfect results. You can be very average, if I can use that, in your results and still be a perfectionist. So actually, what we want to understand is that if you think being a perfectionist, if you being a perfectionist will end up in you being burned out, lonely, disconnected, afraid of stepping out of your comfort zone, afraid of failure, stuck, self-sabotaging, then I don't need that. That's not what I want you to achieve in life. I want you to be a perfectionist and be able to accept failure, reframe failure, learn from failure, be able to be compassionate with yourself. And when you're struggling, reach out to other people, be able to take a break and rest and give yourself a good self-care when you're struggling. So yes, to high goals, fantastic, but in a healthy way.
So that's, you just said to reframe failure.
Yeah.
So let's, if we can let's use that in the context of divorce. And how would you talk to someone about reframing the failure of their marriage?
First of all, I would try to disconnect the pain from the failing. The fact that there's something sad happening in your life, it doesn't mean that you're failing. It's something, sometimes you have to go through sadness or through overwhelming and these uncomfortable feelings, because we want to achieve something better in the long run. So yes, you do feel sad. Yes, you are alone. Yes, you're changing. Your family is changing. Yes, your children will have to get used to another routine or to new people around you, around them and around you. Yes to all this, but this is not failure. If it leads to these 2, 3, or 4, or 5 people in the long run being more happy than now, then it's not failure. It's something that we are just realigning our life so that we can achieve something which is more important. It's not important to stick together just for the sake of sticking together and calling ourselves a family, because that's only a label. We want the real thing, the authentic thing, the real happiness in our lives. And this is what we want to teach to our children. Do everything so that you can have real connections and real happiness in your life, rather than a facade of all this.
That's a good reframe. That's well done. It's interesting because one of the things we do as mediators in a mediation session is people very often will state their positions, and we reframe them into, or break them down into their issues. That's essentially what you've done there, is taken this, sort of mental determination of failure and restructured it into essentially a transition to something better, and a difficult perhaps transition, but I think you use the word necessary. And I like that, because you're not taking away the fact that there is pain in this moment.
There is always pain.
You're not telling people just get over it.
No. No, it's not possible. It's not possible. But I actually bring into the discussion something that we usually forget, which is, why do you think that breaking your marriage is failure, while you don't think that staying in an unhappy marriage is not a failure? So let's see what is real failure here, and whether something bigger than what's happening right here, right now, can make you change your mind about failure. The fact that in a couple of years from now, you will have a different partner next to you, or maybe not, but you will be happy, your children will be happy, they will have more peace in their life, more harmony and calmness in their life. And that, I consider that success.
Yeah, and that's a total reframe. You just went from failure to success. One thing I do wonder, because I've seen this with people who struggle with perfectionism, is we can say all of this and point out that maybe there are pathways to help, but they don't reach out for help. They don't, I think there's something in that struggle as well that makes the people struggle to even reach out for help, or to acknowledge that this might be an issue for them.
And especially when they're getting through a divorce. Huh?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's this stigma, this taboo around divorce, and the fact that it's probably me that I have made a mistake. It's probably people will think that I didn't try enough, or I'm being selfish and I thought only about myself and my happiness, and I didn't think about my partner or my children. So we carry all these ideas and probably cultural norms around us, and it's difficult for us to reach out for help. So it's very difficult, especially if you're a perfectionist. It's difficult to reach out for help because you think, I'm gonna deal with that by myself. I don't need it.
I'm perfect.
I'm strong. I'm strong. I'm fine. Yeah, I'm fine. Absolutely.
I hear a lot of I'm fine.
Yeah. And we haven't heard a lot. I mean, we hear a lot about seeking for professional help for anxiety, depression, but we haven't heard a lot of talk to somebody when you're going through a divorce. We think that, just go find somebody else and then you're going to be okay, like it's fine. So we think that it's something easy to handle, even though I have read something, I'm sure that you have read it as well, that the pain or the challenge of going through a divorce equals in losing a person by death. So the pain and the change that happens in our life, the turbulence that happens in our life, equals this amount of pain. But we don't talk about that so much. There are not so many people saying, seek for support, divorce support groups, or talk to somebody about that, because this is bigger than you think, bigger than you can handle. It's a bombarding in so many levels: emotional, cognitive, experiential, practical, family level, so many levels. It's huge.
So I know you work, and you've created a program around loneliness and helping people to reconnect with themselves and to create meaningful relationships to work through loneliness. How do you work with people around perfectionism?
These are my favorite people.
Bring me the perfectionist, she says.
We resonate more with people that they that have gone through the same struggles with us. So I can say that I'm a perfectionist myself. You are also perfectionist, as you said,
Yes.
So I know the struggle. I know the everyday struggle with the one part of your brain saying, do you think that you really tried enough today? Is it maybe that you have done more? So I know this voice in our head that always pushes us for more. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I can resonate with that. I know I have worked through my own perfectionism. I'm working every day to bring it to the healthy side. I have done hours of therapy, my own therapy, my supervision. So I can help other people go through the same, let's say, process and learn how to still be ambitious and high achiever people, but also take care of themselves and finally feel happy, enjoy their life. Because we learn at school, first work and then play. And this is the motto of perfectionists. Oh, no, I still have things to do and then I will enjoy life. And usually that later is somewhere like a retirement and late retirement, very late. So I want to help people actually get rid of this strong and nasty inner critic. I help people find more self-love and self-compassion in themselves, more self-acceptance, reframe failure, care less about what other people say and care more about what they think as important in their life. So we're actually reprioritizing things in their lives. And I have a program which is called How to Stop Perfectionism and Start Living.
Oh, I like it.
I think living is the opposite of being perfectionist. You're not living when you're a perfectionist. You're just working or running on the hamster wheel.
Yeah.
So how to stop perfectionism and start living. And I have created a program where people join this program, and not only they see all the tools that I've put together for them, but we meet every month and we discuss about our struggles. We take one step further, we go deeper, and we try to find specific tools for each one of them so that they can try and defeat this strong inner critic voice, perfectionistic bullying voice.
Because it's making me think of the two figures on your shoulders.
Yeah.
This is where your inner critic is this big, and your other, I don't even know, your person who pats you on the head is very tiny. So
this is what we call the second one that you said. We call it the healthy voice, the inner critic voice, and the healthy voice that actually understand your needs, but at the same time doesn't beat you up and teach you how to feel good enough as you are and feel accepted as you are. So there's so many things that we discuss in this group about shame, about guilt, about regrets. So many people that they have regrets and they're still beating themselves up for that. Perfectionism in relationships, how you are projecting all these expectations on your partner, and instead of connecting with your partner, you're just judging your partner. So talking about meaningful connections. So we're doing a lot of meaningful and really deep conversations in there. So that's my way to help.
When are you doing the next how often do you do that program?
It's ongoing. Anybody can go in the website and they can buy the program, and they can get into the program and see all the videos and participate whenever they want in the group. Once a month we meet. So it's an ongoing group.
So that's wonderful. So if they go to AntiLoneliness.com, people would be able to sign up and get into that group. It may be, I'm jotting down AntiLoneliness.com. But because I think I'm always trying to make sure that we identify the problem, give some tips on dealing with it, but also share some hope. And that's what I'm hearing that you're saying, and that you yourself went through the process, is you can be a perfectionist, but be a healthy perfectionist instead of the hypercritical. It's very lonely. To go back to your earlier episode with me, they tie together, because being a perfectionist makes you very lonely, because you can never achieve that. And you're always so critical of yourself. But as you, I think, just really pointed out, I hadn't thought of it, you're really critical of others too. because you're judging where they're not hitting that perfection of what you're looking for as well. So
exactly. So this inner critic can be either self-oriented, I'm not enough, or it can be other-oriented, you're not enough. So it's the same voice. Sometimes I turn into myself, sometimes I turn into other people. But for sure, perfectionism is the ticket to life dissatisfaction, stress, anxiety, burnout, relationship issues, and loneliness. That's your one-way ticket if you want to be a perfectionist. But imagine if we can be perfectionist, but at the same time, we can be happy, accepted, feeling love, feeling rested, and all these things. That's going to be perfect.
Yeah. Well, that's the perfect note to end this
That's
episode on. Yeah. So
Yeah.
thank you. I thank you so much for coming back. This was an episode I truly wanted to bring to my listeners and to myself and to many people that I know. So I know this will help people as well. So if people want to reach out to you, AntiLoneliness.com, I will have all the information in the show notes. Thank you again so much for joining me.
Thank you so much. Looking forward to the next one.
And there will be one. Thank you.
Thank you, bye.